These three reports, I'll just hold them up for presentation purposes. The first one we issued, Natalie, how long ago now? A month and a half ago? I forget the date, but could be before Thanksgiving. Is greedflation. The sub-headline, as you can see there, is how corporations are making record profits on the backs of American families. That's the first one. The second one was right before Thanksgiving, called Stuffing Their Pockets, how big food and agriculture businesses are making your holiday meals more expensive. And then the third one is what we just issued last week, shrinkflation, how corporations are shrinking products to supersize profits. Here's the bottom line. I'll try to summarize all three. If you look at the data in terms of where we've been since 2020 especially, inflation's up over that time period, but corporate profits are up about 5 times as much as inflation. So corporate profits are up 75% in the same time period as of 22, where inflation had increased about, I think, 14%. Thankfully, inflation has gone down a lot, from about a little more than 9% down to 3%. But where people are not seeing it, or I should say not seeing the reduction or the impact of that reduction, they're not seeing it at the grocery store, among other places. And that's what these reports get to, which is Federal Reserve data allows us to prove that greedflation has caused not just an increase in food prices at the grocery store over the last number of years, but we can specifically pinpoint what it means to the average Pennsylvania resident. Thousands of dollars they're paying more a year because of greedflation. And I think it's important to point it out and to put a spotlight on it, because it hasn't been the subject of almost any national review at all. Secondly, it should force us to confront what do we do about it. And what do we do about it is twofold. One is we've got to hold corporations accountable for this by pointing it out, number one. Number two, by insisting in terms of policy that they're paying their fair share in taxes, because a lot of these corporations benefited from a tax bill in 2017 that gave them a record tax reduction. So their corporate taxes went way down and cost us $2 trillion while they were jacking up their prices, and that people are seeing at the grocery store. So that we've got to hold them accountable. Obviously, stronger enforcement of the antitrust laws, more aggressive action on consolidation of these big food companies that come together and have monopolies that keeps the price very high. And then in addition to that, we've got to help consumers. One of the best things Washington did in 50 years, if not 75 years, was taking the child tax credit in 2021 and making it much more generous for middle-income and lower-income families. Just think about it this way. In Northumberland County alone, 93% of the children in this county, 17,000 children, were eligible for that tax credit. So that means that in a lot of Pennsylvania counties, 85, 86, 87, and even, as is true in this county, more than 90% of the children benefited from that. And what were their families using that enhanced tax credit of, say, $450 a month from July of 21 to December of 21 when it was in place? They were buying food, which is exactly what we're talking about here. In other words, the impact of greedflation, as onerous as it's been, would not be as onerous if families had this enhanced ability to be able to pay for food as they did with the enhanced child tax credit. So if corporations got permanent tax relief in 2017, as they did, and a lot of that permanent corporate tax relief they used for buying back stock and not keeping their prices down, they didn't keep their prices down. They didn't give their employees much of a raise, if any. What they used it for their own corporate purposes to make their shareholders happy. If the United States of America is going to be the country that gives that kind of corporate tax relief that jacked up the debt and was permanent policy for those corporations, we should make the child tax credit the enhanced version of it, I should say, the 2021 version of it, we should make that permanent policy. There's no reason why families permanently shouldn't be getting hundreds of dollars more to help them pay for the cost of living, and especially the cost of living paying for food for their children, which is what the child tax credit is all about. It's a tax credit to help you raise your children and give you some resources that you may not have otherwise. And for all those in Washington who preach about giving more money back to the people, and they're always talking about how we should cut taxes, it seems like the only passion they have is for tax cuts for big multinational corporations and the very wealthiest. They never have a passion about giving tax cuts and tax credits, or a combination of the two, to families that need it. That families are trying to pay for food, God help us, in the worst, some of the worst food price increases we've ever seen. So that's what this is about, and we wanted to point that out so that people know kind of what the score is.